Hello everyone, my name is Caitlin Flick. I am a student at the University of Missouri. This is my first semester as a master's student in agriculture education and leadership, and the theory that I had was the agenda setting theory. What is agenda setting theory? The agenda setting theory is done when the news media creates public awareness and concern of significant issues. Two assumptions are motives when discussing the agenda setting theory. The press and media do not reflect reality, they shape and filter it. The other assumption being that the amount of time the media spends on covering an issue, the public is more likely to believe those issues are more important than others. This image shows the relationship of the reality of what's going on in the news compared to the agenda of the news coverage and how often they cover something, and how that corresponds with the perception of reality society might have on issues depending on if they think they're more of an issue than they really are. Selection, omission, and framing of stories can impact the perception that we see. Under the agenda setting theory, there are three different subtypes of the agenda setting. We have the public agenda setting, the media agenda setting, and the policy agenda setting. The public agenda will focus on the audience's agenda, where the media agenda focuses on the influence from the mass media. Policy agenda setting deals with how media and public agendas might influence the decision of elite policymakers, politicians, and people running for office. One great example of agenda setting in the media, if you can recall back to 1994 when the O.J. Simpson trial was ongoing, due to the excessive coverage the media had on the trial, it hindered other news from being publicized and advertised the racial tension of the O.J. Simpson trial that was brought to many Americans. A second example of the agenda setting theory that I found this example in our communications textbook, Communicating Theories for Everyday Life. During the 1992 Bush re-election, the media's emphasis on economic issues rather than foreign relations contribute to the incumbent's defeat? Just 2 years before that, Bush received high approval ratings while prosecuting the Gulf War, but he was known to be weaker at economic issues. Therefore, when it was time for his re-election, agenda setting took place by the media, portraying economic issues here in the homelands to be more problematic and gave more coverage to that rather than foreign affairs and the progress we made with that and how happy society was with the foreign affairs situation. My third example of the agenda-setting theory in action that I believe is not so successful would be during the Clinton scandal when Bill Clinton and Monica Lewinsky had an affair, and the news media always was present and covered a lot of the different issues, interviewed a lot of people, but the agenda-setting theory being successful can be questioned because the media did not do an accurate job of telling us what to believe. Many people thought Bill Clinton should be impeached, while many also thought differently. So that is a poor example of how the agenda-setting theory was active throughout the media. The agenda-setting theory is a psychological issue where the media can deceive their viewers by showing certain issues as more important and putting it on their top priority. I often think the media will do this to hide another issue that's going on. A few examples I came across while researching was on the left you see Princess Kate and Prince William on their wedding day, where underneath it talks about Osama bin Laden is dead, and the royal family wedding seemed to take priority over some economic issues that our country is directly involved with. And that would be a prime example of agenda setting, along with the Anthony Weiner's case with that scandal. That got a lot of news attention, portraying that issue to be more important than what it was when we had other issues to take care of. The agenda-setting theory history began in the early 1960s. Although McCombs and Shaw received credit for formalizing the idea of agenda setting, Bernard Cohen observed the press may not be successful much of the time in telling people what to think, but is stunningly successful in telling its readers what to think about. The world will look differently to different people. Cohen continues with, depending on the map that is drawn for them by the writers, editors, and publishers of the paper they read. I think that says a lot with what the media is in control of letting us to be informed about, and along with how often they are informing us about the situation. Cohen's work greatly influenced Maxwell McCombs while he was faculty at UCLA. Agenda-setting concepts were launched by McCombs and Shaw in 1968 in Chapel Hill, North Carolina, when they sampled what 100 residents thought was the most important election issues compared to what the news media reported was the most important issue. Then they correlated the media's news coverage agenda to the voters' agenda. The controversies over the agenda-setting theory is that since social media has been such a big impact in how we receive our news within the last 5 years, it has forced the agenda-setting theory to be questioned. With our ability to like, share, retweet, favor, and post news articles, it's redistributing the power from the media to our own hands to publicize news pieces. I think a lot of this would depend on who you decide to follow on your social media accounts. If you're following a lot of news production accounts, you're still receiving your news from what they share and retweet. However, if you're following individuals, it's allowing you to get a lot more of your information through your peers from what they feel is necessary to retweet and share. How agenda setting is being used in the agriculture world. The American people are being uninformed about biotechnology creates a vulnerable position for predetermined opinions about GMOs. The news has a choice to cover the food babes reviews or a highly educated scientist. The agenda-setting theory media coverage on genetically modified organisms have not been science-based and have installed a fear about highly tested scientific procedures in our culture. I think it's really raised the question if big companies are forcing farmers to grow GMO seeds and to ask about the effects that GMOs can have on us with long-term health issues down the road. It's also raised the question for genetically modified labeling, mandatory labeling, which has been voted on in multiple states, and that's a prime example of where the media is covering an issue that might not be that big of a deal to the majority of people, but it's getting so much negative attention due to the negative attention the media is presenting on it. Thank you for watching my presentation, and this is just the last slide. I came across this image when I was doing some research on the agenda setting theory, and it kind of struck me as interesting because it says, you write what you're told, thanks corporate news. We couldn't control the people without you. And that really set in to think about when I go home at night and I turn on the evening news to get informed during the day, what I am seeing might be kind of skewed by what the media thinks is important. And there could be other issues going on, maybe if it's in Iraq or Syria, something going on with ISIS, something that I would think would be more interesting or more of an issue that's threatening to our country rather than what Donald Trump said about Carly Fiona's face. So I think that the media really does have a way of skewing our knowledge and us changing our perception on what's important and what's not, and it really distracts us from the real issues. And I think it's a good tactic to get us to not think about foreign affairs or health care or things that are going to affect us later down the road that we need to be thinking of.